Episode 1, 141. The buck stops here. The morning sun filtered through the labyrinth's impossible windows, casting patterns of light that shifted between realities with each passing moment. The castle hummed with its usual organized chaos. 15 children navigating their morning routines, while 55 adults coordinated the complex logistics of a household that defied every conventional understanding of family structure. But today, something particularly mischievous was brewing in one of the castle's more secluded planning rooms, where Jade had assembled her most chaos-inclined advisors for a project that would test the limits of even the wildest family members' tolerance for mayhem. Jade sat at the head of a table that shouldn't exist according to normal geometric principles. Her royal blue cloak of levitation settled comfortably around her shoulders as she reviewed the elaborate plans spread before her. At 27 years old, having recently undergone the mutagen enhancement that had optimized her hybrid physiology beyond even optimistic predictions, she possessed capabilities that approached cosmic significance. But today, those reality-bending powers would be deployed for purposes considerably less world-saving and considerably more personally entertaining than usual. Loki lounged in an elegant chair with his characteristic theatrical grace, the god of mischief's mismatched eyes sparkling with barely contained delight as he reviewed Jade's proposed operation. His aristocratic voice carried genuine appreciation when he finally spoke after several minutes of studying the intricate prank architecture she had designed. This is genuinely inspired work that demonstrates you have absorbed my teaching about sophisticated chaos creation, rather than just deploying random mayhem, disconnected from artistic vision and proper execution. The layered approach, the psychological manipulation, the specific targeting toward Buck's unique personality quirks, all of it shows genuine mastery that most students never quite achieve, despite years of dedicated instruction. Michelangelo bounced in his seat with barely contained enthusiasm, the youngest turtle's natural energy, amplified by obvious excitement about participating in an elaborate prank targeting someone whose chaotic nature made him legendary even with a household where baseline normal had been thoroughly redefined through years of accumulating extraordinary individuals. His voice carried the distinctive blend of creative appreciation and pure mischievous joy. Dude, this is gonna be absolutely epic. Buck is like the most unpredictable person in the entire castle, which is saying something given that we have actual chaos gods and reformed nightmare demons and various other beings whose idea of normal would make regular people's brains melt. Pranking him represents ultimate challenge, because his baseline reality is already so weird that making him confused requires genuine innovation, rather than just doing standard tricks that would work on more conventional targets. Nathan, James, and Gabe had positioned their cameras at discrete angles throughout the planning room, the content creators clearly recognizing that documenting this operation from conception through execution would provide extraordinary footage for their channels. Their equipment hummed quietly as Nathan articulated what they were all thinking about the proposed pranks. Our audience is going to lose their minds over this content. Buck has become fan favorite precisely because his energy is so unpredictable and so genuinely wild that viewers never know what he might do or say in any given situation. Watching Jade systematically mess with someone who operates on his particular frequency of chaos that represents premium entertainment that our subscribers will absolutely devour, despite, or perhaps because of how ridiculous the entire concept sounds when you actually articulate it out loud. The planning had taken weeks of careful observation about Buck's patterns and preferences, months of subtle information gathering about what would genuinely surprise someone whose baseline expectations already existed so far outside normal parameters that conventional pranks would just blend into his usual chaotic experience without creating the distinctive confusion and delight that proper execution demanded. Jade had consulted extensively with family members whose various interactions with Buck had provided insights about his psychology and his particular vulnerabilities that affection, rather than malice, would exploit for purposes of shared laughter, rather than genuine harm. Robert Englund had contributed observations from his perspective as fellow performer who appreciated Buck's theatrical energy, even when that energy manifested as complete unhinged mayhem that conventional standards would classify as deeply inappropriate, despite being somehow endearing through its absolute authenticity. Freddy Krueger, both the redeemed version and the original Nightmare Demon, had provided insights about Buck's relationship with fear and chaos that their unique natures made them peculiarly qualified to assess despite their own considerable experience with inducing psychological distress for very different purposes than what Jade's pranks intended. Willie's gentle perspective had proven surprisingly valuable, the kind of visitor's observations about Buck's underlying loneliness beneath the manic exterior providing context that pure chaos deployment might miss despite surface appreciation for his wild energy. His careful analysis suggested that Buck's extreme behavior partly served to test whether people would accept his complete authentic self, or whether they would eventually reject him once the novelty wore off and the exhausting reality of his sustained intensity became burden rather than entertainment. That insight had shaped Jade's approach fundamentally, ensuring that her pranks would communicate acceptance and affection rather than rejection or mockery, despite the elaborate chaos she was about to unleash. The message needed to be clear that she was pranking Buck because she loved his wild spirit and wanted to engage with him on his own terms, rather than trying to moderate or civilize his nature into something more conventionally manageable that household integration might otherwise pressure him toward becoming, despite his authentic, self-deserving celebration, rather than correction. The first prank activated during Buck's characteristic morning routine, which typically involved him prowling the castle's corridors with manic energy, seeking either trouble to cause or trouble to get into, depending on what opportunities his wandering discovered. He rounded a corner with his usual aggressive swagger and walked directly into perfectly positioned surprise that Jade and Loki had spent hours carefully calibrating for maximum psychological impact, while maintaining safety margins that genuine care demanded despite comedic purposes driving the deployment. The massive, illusory alligator materialized directly in Buck's path, the magical projection so sophisticated that even his considerable experience with actual gators would struggle to immediately identify it as fake, rather than being genuine reptile whose presence in castle corridor represented either dimensional displacement or extremely questionable household pet acquisition. The illusion's details were perfect, scales catching light appropriately, eyes tracking Buck's movement with predatory awareness, even the subtle breathing motion that living creature would demonstrate, rather than being static, image-lacking dynamic elements that careful observation would detect as artificial. Buck's reaction was absolutely spectacular, his body freezing mid-stride as his brain apparently attempted to process whether he was actually seeing what his senses reported or whether something had gone fundamentally wrong with his perception of reality. His voice, when he finally managed to articulate response, carried mixture of genuine confusion, manic delight, and what might have been impressed admiration for the quality of whatever was occurring. Well, hot damn. Either I finally lost it completely, or someone decided to bring my favorite critters into the castle without checking whether that represents good idea versus terrible decision that supervision would definitely have prevented if anyone had bothered to ask whether residential gator represented appropriate household addition. He moved closer to the illusion with characteristic lack of appropriate caution, his fascination with alligators apparently overriding whatever survival instincts might counsel maintaining safe distance from large predatory reptile, regardless of how it had manifested in location where such creatures definitely should not exist. His hands reached toward the projection, confusion intensifying when his tactile senses reported nothing solid despite his visual perception insisting the gator remained directly before him, occupying physical space that touch should confirm, rather than just passing through empty air. The illusion dissolved with dramatic shimmer as Loki's magic released it. revealing Jade standing behind where the projection had been positioned, with expression showing a mixture of amusement and genuine affection for Buck's wild response. Her voice carried warmth that honored his chaos rather than mocking it when she spoke. Surprise, Buck! Consider this the opening move in what I am calling Operation Chaos Meets Chaos, my personal campaign to demonstrate that your wild energy has finally met its match through me deciding to engage with you on your own terms, rather than just accommodating your mayhem while maintaining my own more moderate approach to daily existence. Buck's expression cycled through several emotions before settling on something that might have been genuine joy, mixed with manic anticipation about what other surprises Jade might have prepared. His voice carried enthusiasm that his usual intensity amplified beyond normal excited response, into territory that approached concerning, if he didn't understand, that this represented his authentic emotional expression, rather than being performance or being state-requiring intervention. Oh, this is happening? This is actually happening? You are gonna try pranking me? The undisputed king of chaotic, unpredictable behavior that normal people find exhausting, but that kindred spirits recognize as representing freedom from boring, conventional limitations? Girl, you have no idea what you just started, but I'm absolutely here for whatever madness you think you can deploy against someone whose baseline reality already exists several standard deviations outside normal parameters. The second prank occurred during Buck's lunch, which he typically consumed with aggressive enthusiasm that made table manners seem like optional suggestions, rather than actual expectations that civilized dining supposedly required following. Jade had enlisted Sever Snape's reluctant assistance for creating special editions of Buck's usual meal. The potions master's expertise about magical food preparation, making him uniquely qualified for executing this particular component, despite his obvious distaste for participating in what he had described as juvenile pranking, unworthy of his considerable talents and dignity. Buck bit into his sandwich with characteristic gusto, his enjoyment of food being one of few activities where his manic energy briefly moderated into something approaching normal human appreciation, rather than being filtered through his usual chaotic cleanse. But after several bites, his expression shifted into confusion and fusion as the sandwich began tasting progressively more swamp-like, flavor profile transforming from normal ingredients into something that approximated eating actual wetland vegetation, and mud despite visual appearance suggesting conventional sandwich components. The effect was temporary and completely harmless, Snape's precise potion work ensuring that Buck would experience the swamp flavor vividly, but that his actual nutrition and his actual physical well-being would remain completely unaffected by the magical modification. But the psychological impact was immediate, as Buck's face contorted through impressive range of expressions, attempting to reconcile what his taste buds reported versus what his eyes insisted he was consuming. What in the actual hell is happening to my food? Did someone decide that my gator obsession meant I wanted to literally eat swamp ingredients? Or is this more of whatever campaign Jade apparently decided represents the appropriate way to spend her newly enhanced cosmic level capabilities that could be reshaping reality, but instead are being deployed for messing with my lunch? Michelangelo appeared from concealment nearby, his laughter barely suppressed as he revealed his role in the prank's execution. Dude, your face right now is absolutely priceless. Face and society. This is exactly why pranking you represents ultimate achievement. Because your reactions are so genuine and so intensely Buck that conventional responses seem boring by comparison. And before you ask, yes, this is a continuing campaign, and no, we're not going to tell you what else we have planned because mystery and anticipation represent essential components of proper prank architecture. The afternoon brought escalation as multiple smaller pranks deployed in rapid succession, each calibrated to Buck's specific personality, while maintaining the underlying message of affection and acceptance that Jade wanted ensuring pervaded the chaos. His characteristic aggression found outlet when he discovered that every door he tried opening led to different location than expected. Loki's portal magic, creating temporary redirects that made navigation genuinely confusing, even for someone whose spatial awareness usually proved adequate despite his chaotic mental state. Buck's attempts to reach the training room deposited him in the library. His effort to access the kitchen landed him in the garden. His increasingly frustrated attempts to just get literally anywhere he actually intended going kept resulting in random alternative destinations until his manic energy transformed from confused into something approaching impressed appreciation for the sophisticated magical deployment that such sustained misdirection required maintaining across extended duration. The soundtrack prank proved particularly effective, a magical modification that Jareth had helped implement, making Buck's movement generate musical accompaniment that shifted genres based on his emotional state and his activity. His aggressive prowling produced heavy metal guitar riffs. His moments of stillness triggered gentle harp music, creating comedic contrasts. His manic laughter accompanied itself with circus music that amplified the absurdity while somehow remaining affectionate rather than mock through specific musical choices that celebrated rather than criticized his nature. By evening, Buck had experienced approximately a dozen separate pranks ranging from simple visual gags through sophisticated magical manipulation that Jade's enhanced capabilities and her assembled team's diverse expertise had made possible to execute with precision that pure chaos could never achieve, despite Buck's own considerable talent for creating mayhem. He had been confused, delighted, frustrated, and impressed in roughly equal measures, his reactions providing exactly the kind of genuine emotional range that the operation had aimed to produce while maintaining safety and maintaining the underlying message of acceptance. The culmination occurred during family dinner when Buck discovered his seat had been modified to randomly shift between normal chair and various alternative seating options including throne, beanbag, saddle, and at one memorable moment, an actual alligator that proved to be another of Loki's sophisticated illusions, rather than being genuine reptile, whose presence at dinner table would have created legitimate, rather than comedic concerns about appropriate household pet policies. Buck's mounting frustration with the sustained pranking campaign finally reached breaking point, not through anger, but through that distinctive shift that people who knew him well could recognize as transition from confused target into engaged participant who had figured out the game and wanted to play properly rather than just being passive recipient. His voice when he finally articulated his response carried that blend of manic energy and genuine emotional intelligence that his wild exterior, sometimes obscured, but that careful attention would recognize as core aspects of his complete personality. Alright Jade, I see what you were doing here, and I want you to know that I appreciate the hell out of it, even though you have successfully made me question my grip on reality approximately 17 times today, which is saying something, given that my baseline relationship with conventional reality already exists in pretty questionable territory. You pranked me because you actually get me. Because you understand that my chaos represents authentic expression, rather than just being performance or being problem requiring fixing, through helping me moderate into something more socially acceptable. He stood, his body language shifting from aggressive confusion into something that might have been genuine vulnerability beneath his usual manic presentation. You deployed cosmic level powers for purpose of messing with me specifically, rather than just tolerating my presence while hoping I eventually calm down, or eventually leave when the household decides my intensity creates more problems than my company provides benefits. That matters more than you probably realize. Demonstrates acceptance that most people never quite manage to offer, despite claiming they appreciate my wild energy. Jade rose to meet him, her enhanced awareness having tracked his emotional state throughout the day alongside her amusement about his reactions to various pranks. Her voice when she responded carried absolute sincerity that her playful campaign had aimed to communicate through elaborate chaos, rather than through simple direct statement that Buck's psychology would have struggled to fully accept without the experiential proof that sustained pranking provided. Buck, you are family, which means you get the full experience, including me deciding to engage with your chaos on your own terms, rather than just being audience to your mayhem while maintaining my own more moderate approach. I pranked you because I love your wild spirit and wanted to demonstrate that your intensity does not exhaust me or intimidate me, or make me wish you would moderate yourself into something more conventionally manageable that easier relationships might prefer. She moved closer, wanting him to see her face clearly when she continued. You are exactly as much Buck as you need to be, exactly as chaotic and exactly as intense, and exactly as genuinely yourself as feels authentic, rather than being performance designed to test whether people will reject you once they experience sustained exposure to your complete unfiltered nature. And it will continue engaging with that authentic self through pranks and through passionate encounters and through whatever other forms our relationship takes as it continues developing across whatever future awaits. Buck's response was characteristically physical, his manic energy finding expression through pulling Jade into aggressive kiss, but his usual intensity amplified into something that probably violated several public display of affection guidelines that household policies theoretically maintained, despite massive polyamorous family structure making such rules somewhat absurd. The kiss deepened as months of sustained wild tension between them finally found appropriate outlet, his hands gripping her with possessive urgency that matched the fierce passion he brought to everything he experienced without moderation or without restraint. When they finally separated enough for speech, Buck's voice carried roughness, suggesting barely contained feeling beneath his manic exterior. You are absolutely insane in the best possible way, and I am completely here for whatever chaos we create together going forward. Consider this official notice that you have unlocked achievement for successfully pranking the unpranked, for making me genuinely confused about reality, despite my considerable experience with situations that would make normal people question their sanity. The celebration that followed marked not just a successful prank campaign, but genuine deepening of connection between Jade and Buck that elaborate chaos had facilitated through demonstrating acceptance that words alone might have inadequately conveyed. The family gathered in comfortable configurations throughout the dining area, various conversations developing about different aspects of the day's pranks, and about Buck's reactions, and about the underlying message that Operation had successfully communicated through sustained mayhem, rather than through simple, direct emotional disclosure. Loki raises glass in characteristic theatrical toast to Jade, who demonstrates that cosmic power finds its highest expression not through reshaping reality for grand purposes, but through deploying capabilities for making loved ones feel genuinely seen and genuinely accepted through elaborate pranks that honor their complete authentic natures, rather than just tolerating surface presentations while hoping for eventual moderation. The evening deepened as various family members gradually dispersed, but Buck and Jade remained together, processing what the day had created beyond just successful pranking and touching on deeper recognition about the relationship's unique character. They had retreated to more private space that the labyrinth provided for exactly such moments, when intimate conversation or intimate physical connection required genuine seclusion rather than just nominal privacy, that household scale made difficult to achieve without magical architecture specifically designed to accommodate such needs. Buck's characteristic manic energy had modulated into something approaching genuine peace, his body language suggesting he felt safe enough to relax, rather than maintaining constant, aggressive readiness that uncertain belonging might require sustaining. His voice when he spoke carried vulnerability that his usual wild presentation typically concealed beneath layers of chaos and intensity. You know, most people eventually get exhausted by me, decide that whatever entertainment value my energy provides does not justify the constant intensity that the same interaction inevitably creates when someone operates at my particular frequency. Finding someone who not only tolerates that intensity, but actively engages with it through pranking me, and through clearly wanting more, rather than hoping I somehow moderate myself, that represents something I did not quite believe was possible, despite intellectually understanding that this family supposedly accepts everyone's complete authentic nature. Jade pulled him closer, her enhanced awareness detecting his genuine emotion beneath the rough delivery. Buck, you make life more interesting through your chaos, rather than making it more difficult, despite what conventional assessments might conclude about optimal personality characteristics for smooth household functioning. And I want you to know that today's pranking represents beginning rather than conclusion. Ongoing commitment to engaging with your wild spirit through whatever forms our relationship takes as it continues developing. What followed was encounter that matched Buck's intensity, passion that conventional romance guidelines would probably classify as excessive, but that their particular dynamic made exactly appropriate expression of connection, that elaborate pranking had deepened through its sustained demonstration of acceptance and engagement. His characteristic aggression found welcome reception in Jade's enhanced capabilities that permitted her to match his energy, rather than just enduring it or requiring him to moderate for her comfort. They moved together with wild synchronization, bodies communicating what words might inadequately express about genuine compatibility, despite surface chaos that observers might interpret as dysfunction, rather than recognizing it as authentic expression of bond between two people whose respective natures made conventional moderate approaches feel constraining, rather than comfortable. Buck's intensity throughout was absolute, his usual manic energy channeling into focused, passionate attention that proved he could sustain genuine intimacy, despite his chaotic baseline, making such connections seem unlikely to those who only knew his surface presentation. When exhaustion finally moderated their passionate intensity into comfortable aftermath, they remained tangled together, processing what had occurred and what it meant for their relationship moving forward. Buck's voice carried contentment that his usual chaos rarely permitted experiencing. It was absolutely perfect chaos, and exactly what I needed, without quite realizing it until you decided that pranking me represented appropriate deployment of cosmic capabilities. You honored my nature through engaging with it rather than just tolerating it, demonstrated that my intensity represents feature rather than bug requiring patient accommodation until I somehow moderate into something more conventionally manageable. Jade's response carried satisfaction about successful operation alongside genuine affection for a wild man whose authentic self she had deliberately celebrated through elaborate chaos. You deserve to experience being genuinely seen and genuinely engaged with on your own terms, rather than just being accommodated. And I want you to know that this represents how our relationship will continue, me matching your energy and celebrating your chaos, rather than hoping you eventually calm down into something requiring less active participation from partners who prefer moderate, predictable interactions. Welcome to understanding that accepting someone completely meant engaging with their authentic nature, rather than just tolerating surface presentations, while hoping for eventual moderation. Welcome to recognition that pranking could communicate affection as effectively as conventional romantic gestures when deployed with genuine care about recipient's psychology and needs. Welcome to knowledge that intensity deserved matching intensity, that chaos found its complement in willingness to deploy cosmic power for purposes of elaborate mayhem-serving relationship depth, rather than just impressive capability demonstration, disconnected from actual care about specific person's well-being and flourishing. The Buck had been pranked, the message had been received, the connection had deepened through chaos, but celebrated rather than criticized. And somewhere, an impossible castle between realities, Wild Man and Nexus Queen had found genuine compatibility through willingness to engage authentically, rather than just accommodating intensity that conventional relationships would have found exhausting. Despite its representing legitimate expression of complete self-deserving acceptance and celebration, rather than requiring correction toward more socially appropriate moderate presentation disconnected from actual authentic nature.